Hello everyone, Tess Thomas here from Clay County Historical and Arts Council. Welcome back to another episode of One-on-One with Clay County History. Today we are kind of branching out from Clay County and we're going to talk a little bit about North Georgia and the western part of the state with Miss Ann Woodford. Miss Ann, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us your story. We really appreciate your time.
I'm certainly glad to meet you, Tess.
Could maybe start with telling us about your grandfather and how you came to these parts?
Absolutely. My father, Ann Miller, was a wonderful oral historian. And he used to tell me all these stories about how they got here, what happened, and how did Grandpa come here. Well, in 1912, there was an ethnic cleansing called a racial cleansing that took place in Forsyth County, Georgia. That's where the family lived. Almost all of our family lived down that way. And they, the white caps, they called them at that time, chased all the families out of their homes down there. They burned the church and they burned the school. It was at a time when the African American people were cooperating with the white farmers and they were doing sharecropping and building farms together, and they owned their own property, and they had their cows and their horses, their mules, and they were growing all of their crops, and it was harvest time. My grandpa tells me about the time when the white caps came in with guns, but before they came in, one lady had just cooked a big meal, had it on the table, rang the bell to have everybody come in from the fields. They came in from the fields and they put their animals up and they started coming to the house, and the white caps came. They were the precursors to the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh no.
They came in and chased the people out. Their meal was hot meal on the stove, ready to eat. The people ran with just the clothes on their backs.
Oh, horrible.
And yes, and those people just sat down at the table and ate the food that was already prepared. And and they went, took the property, and they illegally but legally took the property over for all the people that were there. They burned down their schools and churches, as I've said, and just destroyed the community altogether. There were approximately 1,100 African Americans that were removed. Either they ran out for fear of their lives or they were chased out at gunpoint.
Unbelievable.
So my grandfather, who worked on the railroad, he and his mother went up to Marietta, and they had relatives up there already, so they stayed with them for a little while, and he was riding up and down on the rails from between Marietta and Blue Ridge. So he said when he was in Blue Ridge, if a white man at that time told a black man to do anything, he had to do it. And so they told him he had to come up through all the backwoods and everything to bring goods that came on the train up into Cherokee County. He said that when he crossed the line into Cherokee County, he was amazed because the people were so much different. They were so much nicer. He didn't feel the fear that he felt in North Georgia. So he came in, and after a little while, he started to be familiar. The people were familiar with him. And it was the time of black codes, when it was against the law for a white man to sell property to a black man.
You're kidding.
Yes. And so he said, he got up the nerve to ask a white man, was there any property to sell? And the man just automatically said, yes, I've got some, get in the car. And he drove Grandpa
that's awesome.
up to Andrews and showed him property. That is where I have my studio right now, because that's where my grandpa built the first house that was in the black community, that part called Happy Top.
Happy Top.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. He had a cousin. His first cousin was his best buddy and best friend. His name was William Bowens. Grandpa's mother was Katie Bowens, but she had married a man whose name was Miller, so Grandpa took his name. But William Bowens came up, and he had, until just recently within the last few years, the only African American business in Andrews.
Really?
He opened up a business called the Pressing Club, where he would do repairs on clothing, press the clothes out, and the mayor of Andrews was Percy B. Fairby. He became well known and a millionaire. But at that time, he says that the tale that they told, and you just have to believe it, was he was new and young there coming in, Percy B. Fairby was, and he had one suit. So he would come and go in the back room and take off his suit, and William would press it out and make it ready for his
Right,
meetings.
on the spot.
Yes,
Nice.
right on the spot.
Wow.
And so I have a photo in my book, and also I use it in my presentations of William's pressing club. And it had a sign in the back that said the pressing club. It had a telephone on the wall. Now, that was in the 1930s. And that was
Which
really,
was not in every home at that time.
No way.
Right,
That's
yeah.
right. So William was an entrepreneur. He was what we call a jackleg preacher, a jack of all trades. He could do just about anything. And so what he did was he made, when he said he was a bootlegger and a moonshiner. So he would make this homebrew, they called it, and they would go out in the holler, which was just down from my grandpa's house, and they would be out there partying. The men would be dancing, and William played a little mandolin, and they'd have a good time.
Nice.
And so he thought it was the happiest place, and especially coming out of what had happened to them down in Georgia.
Sure.
And so he named it Happy Top. William Bowens named Happy Top. Now Happy Top goes from the black community that was this very small now down to the edge of town, and all the white people are just as proud as they can be to live in Happy Top. Well, Grandpa in 1914 joined, he was drafted into World War I. So he left. He built a house before he left for his mother so he could bring her up from Georgia.
Oh.
So he left her a house, and that was the first house in a little area called Happy Top for the black people. And then some of his other friends from down there saw that it was okay to live in Andrews, so they came up and they started to build. So when Grandpa returned from World War, in his time spent in World War I, it was 1919, he came back. That was the year women got the vote, right?
The year my grandmother was born.
Yeah, yeah. So he came back, and his mother had fallen in love with a local man, so she didn't want to stay in the house anymore.
Oh.
So Grandpa went to Bryson City in Swain County, and he met Nora Alice Howell out there, and they fell in love, and he married her and brought her back, and they lived in that house until he died in 1970. She stayed a few more years after that, and then her family that had migrated north brought her up north with them. But the house was still there, and from 1979 to 1982, I fixed up the old house, and I lived there for a while, trying to live in Andrews, but there was no way to make a living, so I had to leave.
Oh.
My sister and her husband lived in California, and they invited me to come out there and stay with them, and he had a job for me. So I moved to California and stayed for 9 years.
Okay, so let's back up a little though. As a child, you were living at where? In Andrews or?
In Andrews, Daddy built the house.
Okay.
Down from his father's house.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so where'd you go to school?
Okay. I attended a little school called Andrews Colored School for 4 years, and then the other 4 years, Andrews Negro School, they called it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and there was one teacher, and the first year that I went there, it was the year that the tannery in Andrews had closed, and almost all the black men worked in the tannery, so they didn't have work anymore. They had to do things like cooking and cleaning and babysitting, and that was just below a man.
Sure.
At that time, so they began to migrate north and west. So they went Chattanooga, Knoxville, and a lot of them went north to Cincinnati and up into Warren and Youngstown, Ohio. And that's where most of Grandpa's family's children, his sons and daughters, went up there. Daddy and his sister, Aunt Pauline Jones, stayed in Andrews, and Uncle T.D. Miller stayed with them at their house all for years until he passed away also in 1970. The school had one teacher, and it was a one-room school. It had outhouses, so we had to go outside to go to the bathroom. Just before I left, they put some toilets inside the school. But I was the only kid in my grade from 2nd to 8th grade.
Wow. How many kids were actually in the schoolhouse?
Probably around 20-some when I first went, as in first grade,
Mm-hmm.
but because of migration, they all left, and there weren't more than about 14 or so there when I left. And then every time someone graduated, there was no one to come back into the school.
Sure.
I was the only one in my grade from second to eighth. When I graduated from eighth grade, there was nowhere else to go to school. It was segregated throughout the county. In Murphy, they went to the 10th grade, but no one could get a certificate, a graduate. They couldn't get their diploma because 10th grade was the end of education in the county.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So it just so happened that my dad's two youngest sisters had gone to a boarding school, a Methodist church boarding school in Asheville. And at the last minute that year, they decided that I should go there. And of course, I didn't want to leave home at 14 years old and go away and board away.
This was 10th grade?
No,
or 8th grade?
8th grade.
8th
There was
grade,
no
that's
way
young.
there was no way to come from Andrews to Murphy to go to school every day.
Right.
It's a 32-mile round trip. Yeah, 32-mile trip every day. And my dad had to work, and I just couldn't do it. So, to make a long story short, that school happened to be the best thing that ever happened to me.
Awesome.
Oh my goodness. It had mixed staff, black and white teachers and staff, and they were just, their intent was that every one of the black girls that went there, it was all girls, all black girls, would go to college.
Oh, my heart.
Yes, yes, it was something else, because if they made you, I had no competition, but encouragement with the other girls. So I had dear friends that were very serious about their education. And I speak English as the way I speak it because we had a teacher from Kentucky, a white teacher from Kentucky that was strict, very strict.
On proper English.
Proper English,
yes.
Yes. And I always wanted to please my teachers because that's the way it was when I was at home. I wanted to please my family.
Sure.
My grandpa just loved what I could do. He would just look and smile, and he'd say, "Ann can do anything."
That's right.
What an encouragement.
What wonderful encouragement, yes.
That's exactly right. I learned to do my artwork starting with the first grade. At 6 years old, I was given the corner of the elementary school table to do little models with clay, modeling clay. As I was saying, the teachers had to teach 8 grades. I mean, it was all grades.
Right.
And they had 5 classes per day to go to. So they had to rush around, but I was one, I've always loved learning. And so as soon as she would give the assignment, I would do my assignment. And then I'd sit there for all that time while she's going to the other grades.
Oh, wow.
And so, until my next class. And so they would give me the modeling clay and let me sit down and make little clay. So I made a little corner, probably no more than 12 by 12 at first. And then it just grew and grew over the years. That they did not tear it down in the summer.
You're
So
kidding.
I filled up half the table with my little farm,
awesome.
with the little animals and the little people and all those kinds of things. And then
that had to make you feel special that they didn't tear it down after year after year.
I didn't know that it made me feel special then,
Right?
but I know now
You know
that
now.
really encouraged me to keep going.
Sure.
Well, my favorite teacher was the one I had from the last 4 years. She loved my artwork, and I did crayon work, drawing, pencils, all kinds of different artwork. And she would send it away to the fairs, county fairs, to the Scholastic Art Awards, and she did this at her own expense. I won blue ribbons and gold keys and all that, so I was really encouraged.
Amazing.
Yes. Well, at home, my folks really enjoyed my art as well, and so I had an opportunity to stay up. We as kids, we had to go to bed, at a certain time, and for sure when our parents were in bed. But if I was doing a piece of artwork, Mom and Daddy would let me stay up and finish it. It could be over into 1 o'clock at night.
Goodness.
Yeah. So
But they didn't want to discourage you. They just let
did
you
not.
stay in that mode and
That's right.
get to finish. That's
And I
amazing.
also loved a program called the John Nagy Learn to Draw program on Saturday mornings before everybody else was up. I think it came on at something like 7 o'clock. My little sisters would be in bed, and I would get up and draw with John Navy.
Awesome.
My parents bought me a John Navy Learn to Draw outfit, so I still have a few of the art pieces that I made at that time. That was the encouragement earlier on, and Daddy bought me. He loved to build, so he brought me a little kid carpenter set. So I would build things, and I built my own little box to put all of my little implements, all of my artworks, and all those
Like
things.
a shadow box or a shelf?
It was a nice little box, about so high and about this big, out of some scraps that he had.
Okay.
And he brought scraps home from work he
It
had
was your
done.
treasure box.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
One of the most wonderful things that happened to me, because you can see my artwork, is that there was a white school nurse who came around every so often to the school, and she saw my artwork. And of course, my teacher, Miss Ida Mae Logan, who was from Asheville but had to stay there in the back of somebody's house, she'd tell the lady about my artwork. And one day she came and brought a used set of oils, some brushes, the medium, all kinds of mediums that she had, and a Walter Foster book of how to paint seascapes. But it had in the back how to mix paints.
Oh, that's all you needed.
That's all I needed.
That's it.
Yeah. So
That artist is
I
born.
wished that I knew who she was. It'd be too late now, but it would have been wonderful to know who she actually was, because think about it. I'm doing oil paintings now because that woman brought me that used set of oils.
Right.
I'm doing drawing now
It
because
would be nice
my
to
parents.
recognize her.
Yes, I would surely recognize her.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Before I went away to Allen High School, the area that we live in is unique. Before I went away to high school, there were two people, and I always say whether the people are white or black, because we don't have that many black people in Andrews, in Cherokee County, to tell the truth right now, in Clay, for sure.
Huh.
But there was a white woman in Andrews who was they call them a seamstress, I think.
Okay.
She was a tailor, actually, and she made her daughter brand new clothes for college every year. So,
talented.
Yes. Well, she was Canadian. They say she never became an American citizen. She was Canadian. But she was at the school, and when we'd go from our school, we had to go pick up our own supplies over at the white school. That's where we got our supplies. And they were very meager supplies, very little. But she was there, and she was always kind. So she knew when I got ready to go away to high school in Asheville that I needed clothes. So she gave me her daughter's used clothes from the year before, because her daughter didn't want to wear the same clothes, you know.
Right.
She's a wealthy woman, you know.
Right.
She didn't want to wear the same clothes every year. So she gave me these clothing that hadn't been finished, that would have interfacing, lining, everything. Really fine wool, skirts and all. And so
What a gift.
Yes, a wonderful gift.
And you were appreciative of it.
Yes.
Not like the daughter that was like,
Yes.
I'm not wearing that again this year. They already saw me in that.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And grandma had a treadle sewing machine. So I'd go there and take those clothes that were partially finished, that she gave, that Miss Hay, her name was Artist Hay, in Andrews. And I would take those clothes up to grandma's and I would finish them. So when I got ready to go away to high school, I had nice clothing.
Nice.
Either things that were secondhand, which was only a year old or whatever,
Right.
and the ones that I finished. So I had that. And then Dr. E.U. Birch was the pharmacist in Andrews. He and his wife, Dr. and Mrs. Birch, took me through their dry goods store, and they filled up a cart with everything I would need to go to Allen High School.
I have chills.
It gives me chills
Yes,
and tears to
right?
my eyes when
That's
I think about it,
amazing.
because they were so wonderful. Made sure that I had lotions and creams and soaps and bedspreads and sheets and
Aw.
everything for my needs at Allen High School.
So probably instead of being, you're probably a little scared to go, but at least you have that comfort and knowing I've got everything I need,
Yes.
and I'm not going to be embarrassed by my clothes, and I'm going to be fit in with everyone else.
Later, I thought about that, but I didn't think about it then because
No?
I didn't want to go.
Oh, you still didn't want to go.
I did
What's
not
that
want to
like
go.
from
I
your
was
family?
14 years old and
Yeah.
had never stayed anywhere away from home except with my grandparents over in Franklin.
That was a long
We'd
way.
go over there and stay for 2 weeks to a month at a time in the summer. And so when I arrived over there, I was crying, and my Uncle Bud Jones had driven us over there. And we were all crying, and Bud was crying too. It was so funny to
Right,
see him
to see
cry.
him cry.
Yeah, he was an orderly at the hospital.
Did you
in
have to
Andrews.
stay for long periods of time? You couldn't come back and visit? Or did you stay for the entire school year? Or?
It was for the year, but we could come home once between the beginning of school, Labor Day weekend, and Thanksgiving. And then we could come home for Christmas. And then we had a chance between Christmas and Easter to come home one other weekend. But if there was somebody in town that my parents could trust and allow me to go out to, I could go and spend the weekend at their house.
I
And so I had some friends that were in the school also that I visited their home.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to do this month long by yourself away from family.
Oh, it was more than a month.
I said a months long, yeah, like from
months long, yeah.
from September to June,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
away from your family.
Yeah,
That would have
yes.
been really hard.
Yes.
And so you were there you graduated from high school there?
Mm-hmm. I graduated with honors from Allen High School, and I always felt good about it because when I first went there, I had my roommate in the dorm where I stayed. She was from New York, and she mocked me because I used our accent from here, which was like, I'm going upstairs, I'm going upstairs. And she would mock me for those things. I can't even say the words that I used to say anymore.
Right, pronounce it that way.
But she mocked me so bad. But I've always thought if she had stopped mocking me and wasting her time on that, she wouldn't have had to leave at the end of that first semester. She flunked out the first semester.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely.
He
But I'm
certainly
still
gave her
friends with the other girls that were my roommates.
Nice.
And even now, we still talk
Oh,
with each other.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's
It
amazing.
was fabulous.
And so what year was it that you graduated from?
I graduated in 1965
In 65.
from Allen High School.
All
and
right.
then I wanted to go to college because that was insisted upon by the teachers there. Went to Ohio University, but I had applied. I was wanting to go to American University in D.C. And I'm a kid. I was a kid. I never thought about how much it would cost Daddy to pay for application fee.
Right.
So I applied to Ohio University. It was $60 for application fee, and then American University's application came, and I contacted Daddy. I need $60. Daddy said, can't do it. And I didn't think about that. Can you imagine he made $5 an hour? How much he had to pay for the application fee for me? And
yeah,
as a kid,
in 65, yeah, $60 was a lot.
Yes.
I mean, how
But
much
he
was
made
a brand
$5
new?
an hour.
How much was a brand new car back then? Like a
That's
few
right.
$100, you know. So
yeah,
comparatively,
exactly.
he probably hated to tell you no.
Yeah, well, it was hard for him too. He didn't want me to leave because I was leaving to go all the way to Ohio.
Yeah.
And he did not want that. So it was tough getting through to him. But I worked in Murphy as the first black person to work in an office in Cherokee County.
That's a nice thing.
For one of those summers. And I met a lady named Mrs. Hay who worked in that office. And because I had to catch the bus from Andrews to Murphy every day, I'd have to be down there at 6 o'clock in the morning. Daddy would take me to the bus stop in Andrews and ride down to Murphy. And then when I got to Murphy, I had to sit there and wait until the office opened at 8 because it was only like 30, 40 minutes to ride from Andrews to Murphy. And then in the evening, got off at 5 o'clock, and I had to wait for the bus to come back through at 6. So Mrs. Hay said, oh, no, it's not going to work. So she talked to Mom and Daddy, and she had me live with her for the summer.
Oh.
See, this is why there's no way in the world that I can be prejudiced.
Right.
You know, because
Absolutely.
I think about it. Yeah.
Been there for you and shown their love and grace and
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was great at church in Andrews. I love that tradition, the black tradition of church. I loved watching women walking up and down and shouting, they call it,
Sure.
in the aisles.
And arms in the air and
Yes.
praising Jesus, right?
You're right. You're right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Miss Esther Bowens was one. Her name was Esther Bowens, and her husband was George Bowens, and he was one that moved out of Cumming, Georgia, also, and built his house there.
Okay.
Miss Esther was a very strong spiritual woman who was our Sunday school teacher, and she was the people at that time were so outgoing. She was president of the women's group of the Baptist churches from Waynesville and Canton all the way back, and she would catch the bus and go to do her president work out in Waynesville or Canton at that time.
Amazing.
Amazing. I loved hearing her pray. I loved hearing her sing, and we would just enjoy church because it was actually partially entertainment.
Sure, it was fun.
Yeah. But it also put a spiritual feeling in me. And so I joined the church, and I was baptized in the Valley River outside. And those were some days that it's why old people always want to think in the past, because those were better days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, how did we go from, how did you get into this? Can you talk about this artist examples you have next to us, these beautiful paintings you've done?
I never stopped doing artwork over all those years,
right.
But I had to work to make a living,
okay.
So I did a lot of other work. When I came home from California after living out there for 9 years, well, I'll kind of back up a little bit.
Okay.
I graduated from Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. Graduated from there cum laude because it was very important for me to study. No partying and going on. It was work, and so I graduated from there. And while I was there, I met a man who was from Columbus, and we kind of fell in love that first year, but we didn't stay together. When I graduated, I went to Pittsburgh, where I worked for a Young Life Campaign, which was a Christian non-denominational organization. And one day he showed up after 3.5 years, and we were still
3.5 years later.
Yeah.
He just showed up. He could not get you off his mind.
That's right. We couldn't get each other off our minds. So
that's great.
So we decided that we'd get married. But in the meantime, I had applied to American Airlines to become an airline stewardess, and I talked to him about it, and I said, we can't get married now because I'm just new in this being an airline stewardess, and I want to travel the world.
Sure.
Oh, no problem, he said. No, you can still do it. Well, I believed him, but it wasn't true.
Oh.
So after we got married, he didn't want his wife to be an airline stewardess anymore. So I left, but I lived in New York City while I was doing my work with American Airlines. Loved it. Lived in Manhattan in a 3-story walk-up little apartment building. Enjoyed that, met people of all kinds, and that opened me up even more. I should back up a little bit. When I graduated from Allen High School, a teacher that was there from Watertown, New York, paid my way on the bus to go up to Watertown, New York to talk to somebody about what I should do as far as getting a degree at Ohio U. And the man's name is Klaus Ebling. He died a couple of years ago, and I was able to participate in the coffee klatch for him after he died by writing information that they read at the funeral.
Oh, wow.
But when I went up there, he said, it's going to be hard for you to make a living as an artist, because I just wanted to be an artist.
Yeah.
He said, just take something that is based in business and keep doing your artwork. So I took interior design. So my degree is a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Interior Design.
Okay.
That lady paid my way. She's still my friend. She was a young teacher, like fresh out of college at that time. She paid my way to go up to their farm in New York. And they had a dairy farm. Probably had maybe 30 or 40 cows at that time. And it was so funny because one of the cows was going to have a calf, right? And she knew I was from a farm. I said, I'm from a farm, and I was always proud of being from a little farm.
Right.
But these cows were like, their backs were as high as my head. They were huge cows.
Oh my gosh.
And this one cow was down about to have a baby. And I'm standing there, and the lady said, oh, maybe you should be, no, you're from a farm. You've probably seen this already. She didn't know that I'd never seen a calf being born.
Okay. Oh gosh.
It was so funny. I was
no.
probably about to faint.
Right?
But I'm still friends with her daughter. She also died about 10 years ago now. But they were so kind to me and caring. And Klaus Ebling and his wife, they were very kind and welcoming, fed me lunch. While I was at Allen High School, we took a choir tour, because I was in the choir, to upper state New York and Vermont. I tell you all of this because I had so many experiences that opened me up by going to Allen High School.
Right.
So
Opportunity.
Yes.
Blessing after blessing.
Yes.
Wow.
Meeting all the different people, and there were no black people up there in upper state New York and Vermont.
Really?
We went to those churches, and there were no black people in the churches.
No
It was
kidding.
all white people, and we were all black girls choir.
Huh.
But it was exciting and fun. We had to stay with the people in the community. And for many years after I stayed with one lady, she took me home with her, and she made me a sandwich with bread and butter. Because that's what they put on instead of mayo. And I was looking at her making the sandwich, and I was
what
like,
is this?
yeah, she put butter on the sandwich?
Unheard of.
Yes. But it was all those experiences that opened me up and made me want to tell the stories that I tell. You mentioned that I should talk about how did we get to the book.
Yes, the name of your book is When All God's Children Get Together, a celebration of the lives and music of African American people in far western North Carolina. Researched and written by yourself.
I wrote that to make sure that the people who almost seem invisible in our area are noticed, are never forgotten. Because when you have the black ink on a white page, those folks are going to be around forever.
That's right.
That makes people immortal almost.
That's right.
You have it opened up to J.T. Nicely Jr. He used to be the person who ran the films at the Hen Theater in Murphy.
Oh.
And the black people were upstairs. They let us come in. It was segregated. So downstairs the white people sat and the black people sat upstairs. And I've always said we had the best picture because we could see the whole screen from
Right.
there.
You had the best
People
seats in the
sitting
house.
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
So you had a lot of collaboration with this. You said a couple of people that helped you with this. Will you talk about those people and recognize them?
Yes. Barbara McRae was the publisher, the editor of the Franklin Press for many years in Franklin. And I was talking with her about the history of my family that she had collected from over there in Franklin, which was the Weichel and the Chavis family. My grandmother was a Chavis, that's my mother's mother, and Grandpa was a Weichel. And she had collected information on our family, and we always had excitement sitting together talking about those good times, you know, those bad and good times back in the day.
Right.
But she, because the book wasn't being finished, the layout of the book wasn't being finished fast enough, she said, well, I can do that. And she had it all set up because she had done several books herself.
Okay.
And so she decided that she would do the book, lay it out for me, and I always give her the honor for that because when she started on it, we were probably about a couple months into doing the layout and the editing of it when she discovered she had fourth stage ovarian cancer.
Oh.
It was very tough, but she told me when she went into remission after that, that the days that she worked on the book kept her mind on something other than the fact that she had cancer.
Right, not dwelling on it.
Yes, and she had done everything she could to work on making a place called Ray's Chapel, which was an AME Zion church in the past, where my mother's sister's husband was the pastor way back in the day.
Okay.
She wanted to make that into a community center. and she was doing a great job of it. Right now, there is a Women's History Trail in Franklin that on this Saturday coming, I mean not this Saturday, but Saturday the 23rd, they're having the unveiling of a statue that has a Cherokee, a white woman, and a black woman on it that bridges the these groups,
Right.
the racial groups there.
That's wonderful.
I don't have enough time to tell you about all of it now, but it's going
Yeah.
to take place at 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday.
And where will it be?
It will be in Franklin, and I will give you details on that.
Okay. I know that we're running, a little long on time, but I do want to let you guys know that she's also writing a second book that's in the progress. But if you'd like a copy of this, When All God's Children Get Together, it's on Amazon. And what was the publisher?
Book Logics
Book Logics.
in Alpharetta, Georgia.
All right.
And my website, annstree.com.
ANNSTREE.com. I also want to let you know that she will be at the Beale Center the 22nd of March at 7 p.m. She's doing an African American history in this area. North
It'll
Carolina,
mention
Tennessee.
the Georgia information, but it's about Western North Carolina. It's about what's in the book.
What's in this book, so
Yes.
it'll be a lot more detailed than what we could get on this. Also, in July, keep your eyes on CCHAC's website and our social media platforms, because in July she's going to be teaching an art class. Can you tell us kind of about these two paintings that you brought with you today?
Oh yes, this painting is the tall one is Ann, and the little one is my little protector, I called her, Mary Alice. Unfortunately, she died when she was 40 years old.
This is you, Ann?
Mhm.
Okay, and
Mhm.
oh, and you as
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah, there was a man named Smiley who was a photographer in Andrews, and he took photos of the black kids.
Aw.
And it just happened that was one of the photos. And of course, I adjusted it for the painting. I wanted us to be in our yard out front when I
Right.
did the painting.
Right.
And I wanted people to see us in our little Sunday best. That would be our little Easter
And your
dresses.
patent
And
leather
our
shoes.
little patent leather Mary Jane's
Yes.
biscuit
And
size
I don't know if you
shoes.
can see on the, I'll get a couple of shots of these each separately before I leave today, and so you can see the actual expressions in their face and their eyes. It's absolutely amazing. And this gorgeous one over here, tell us
Thank
about
you.
this one.
This model for this one is my niece, Nikisha Moses, and I call this Queen, Black, and Beautiful.
Oh,
This is one of a series of paintings that I'm doing called Black, meaning person black, Black in Black, on Black. And
Black in black, on black.
Mhm.
Well, it's so many shades, and like I said again, the expression on her face is just regal,
Thank you.
very regal. I love it.
Thank you.
Very talented lady. And I know you guys all want to see her on the 22nd of March at the Beale Center in downtown Hayesville, 7 p.m.
There's
Come early so
one,
you get a seat.
there's one more announcement.
Yes, please.
We want all the women that can come to attend the Multicultural Women's Development Conference, April the 19th and 20th at the Hinton Rural Life Center.
Okay.
Betty Dorsey, who lives here in Hayesville, is one of the founding members of One Dozen Who Care.
One dozen who care.
And we are the ones that sponsor that event.
Oh, wonderful.
So I hope all the women will show up.
Oh, absolutely. Be there.
Yeah.
I want to thank you today for sharing your story with us, and I understand that we didn't have the time to get to cover everything, but look, and the presentations that she does will just, there's so much information and so many wonderful stories and a lot of blessings she's had in her life, and it just want you to take away from this is that we are all God's children. It does not matter what you look like, it's all what's inside. And so love each other.
Thank you, honey. Yes.
So don't forget to check out our social media apps. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And our website is clayhistoryartsnc.org. And if you or anyone you know is interested in doing one-on-one with Clay County history, please don't hesitate to email me at cchacHazeville@outlook.com. And then thank you again for tuning in today, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye now.
Thank you.